I don't believe that's the case. Dr. Eckenhoff was right. Everyone you come in contact with matter. And we're all here to help each other. That should be the way life is lived. We've been told that that Antifa is a group that is part of the peaceful protest movement. From Zero Hedge, a safe space to practice aggression, Project Veritas infiltrates Antifa Fight Club in New York City. One day after infiltrating the violent Rose City Antifa cell in Portland, Oregon, Project Veritas has done it again, this time in New York City, where an undercover journalist recorded the young radicals receiving martial arts instruction on fighting techniques for riots. Peaceful protest. Direct quote. If you get a good liver or kidney shot, it's pretty much crippling them. They're going to be doubled over and in a lot of pain. This is from one of their instructors. If you break one of those floating ribs, which are small and right down here, those are also very painful. It's hard to move after that, to catch a breath. So one good body shot could potentially give you all the time in the world to run while they're doubled over in pain, or really put a beating on them. After that, if you really want to make it personal. It's from a dude named Chris, who's the Antifa fight instructor. What a special piece of work he is. Special piece of trash. Hurting others. That's the peaceful protest. We've been told that police brutality is universal. I heard right through that box that from the bought-off lamestream fake media that it's happening hundreds, if not thousands of times every day in the United States. Well, is that accurate data? Is it occurring? Yeah, it is. And needs to stop. Well, let's look at the data. In recent years, police have killed an average of 1,000 Americans per year. Of that, half are white, a quarter are black, and the remainder of those killed, the quarter, have been from another race. Of the 1,000 deaths by police, less than 4% involve a white officer on an unarmed black male. That translates roughly to about 40 a year. That's 40 too many. Don't get me wrong. But again, the data. And let's go back to the last full year Obama was president, minus the election, 2015. In a one-year time frame, 2015, 6,095 blacks were murdered. Of those, 258 blacks were killed by police, and less than 20 of those folks that were killed were unarmed. Okay. Essentially, 6,100 blacks were killed in 2015. 258 by police, 20 were unarmed. So roughly we have about 5,700 blacks who were killed in 2015 when Obama was president. And the overwhelming majority, 90-some+%, were blacks killing blacks. Black lives do matter. All black lives matter. We need to focus, we need to look at those 20 who were unarmed and killed. And those officers that were involved in that those situations need to be dissected. And if it involved police overreach, brutality, those officers need to be prosecuted and held to the rule of law. But what about those 5,600 blacks who died? Where is the outrage from the Al Sharptons and the Jesse Jacksons and the Cuomos and the Whitmers and the Pelosi's and Schumer's, Romney's, Bush's, Colin Powell, General Matt? Where is the outrage from those individuals? All Black Lives Matter. Not just some that fit a narrative of the globalists that want to feed you information to divide and conquer. Over the past 10 years, more data, accurate data, police officers are 18 times more likely to be killed by a black assailant than an unarmed black being killed by a police officer. The number one cause of death for a young black male is homicide. 7,400 black males died in a homicide in 2018. Of those, 200 blacks died in an altercation with police, and the vast majority of those that died had a weapon. In 2020, 20 unarmed whites were killed by police. 2020, 10 blacks were unarmed, were killed by police. Now, people say the black population is 13%. The white population is 60%. There's a disparity there. Well, if you look at the amount of crime data, the vast majority of crime in the United States that is documented has been implemented by blacks. Fact. New York City, 23% black, 75% of shootings they have been involved in. New York City, 33% white, 3% of shootings. Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York, in 2019, blacks and Hispanics accounted for 88% of murder and non-negligent manslaughter victims in New York City. 88%. All black lives do matter. But the vast majority of blacks who are dying at the hands of other blacks. That doesn't mean we ignore what's been happening and what has happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd or any other city around the country. But we also have to focus on why so many blacks are being killed by blacks. To ignore that is not being fair to the black community or to our country. It's been said, the globalists through the box, that Attorney General Barr, well, he doesn't care about what's happening with the police brutality issue, what's happening in minority communities around the country. I want to read to you a statement he made this past Thursday on June 4th. You're not going to hear it through the box, but you're going to hear it through me. Attorney General William Barr's remarks on Mr. George Floyd and civil unrest. Over the Constitution Avenue entrance of this building, the Department of Justice, is a Latin inscription that translates as, quote, everything is created by law and order. That ancient principles still hold true. Our free society depends on the rule of law, the assurance that ordinary citizens can go about their lives without being subject to arbitrary violence or fear. When the rule of law breaks down, the promise of America does too. Our nation is now confronting two serious threats in the rule of law. The first is a long-standing one, but was recently crystallized and driven home by the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Wait a minute. They told me on the box that he didn't address it. The video of police conduct in this episode is harrowing when you watch it and imagine that one of your own loved ones was being treated like that and begging for their lives. It is impossible for any normal human being not to be struck in the heart with horror. This matter is being pursued by both state and federal government. The state has filed murder charges against one officer and aiding and abetting charges against 3 other officers. As we typically do in cases such as this, the Department of Justice is conducting a parallel and independent investigation into possible violations of federal civil rights laws. The president has directed me to spare no effort. Wait a minute. The box has told me that Donald Trump doesn't care either. I know. We'll get to him in a second. We are coordinating our work with that of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. As a matter of comedy, the Department of Justice typically sets the state go forward and its proceedings first. This afternoon, our United States Attorney in Minnesota and FBI Special Agent in charge of Minneapolis Field Office will attend a memorial service for Mr. Floyd. Today is a day for mourning. The day is coming soon when justice will be served. George Floyd's death was not the first of its kind, and it exposes concerns that reach far beyond this case. While the vast majority of police officers do their job bravely and righteously, it is undeniable that many African Americans lack confidence in the American criminal justice system. That must change. Our Constitution mandates equal protection of the laws, and nothing less is acceptable. As the nation's leading federal law enforcement agency, the Department of Justice will do its part. I believe that police chiefs and law enforcement leaders around the country are committed to ensuring that racism plays no part in law enforcement and that everyone receives equal protection under the laws. In October 2019, long before this happened, but still, there was obvious issues with police brutality on the books, the president established the first commission on law enforcement since the 1960s. I am meeting later this month with the commission and have been talking with law enforcement leaders around the country. In the weeks and months ahead, we'll be working with community leaders to find constructive solutions so that Mr. Floyd's death will not have been in vain. We will work hard to bring good out of bad. Unfortunately, the aftermath of George Floyd's death has produced a second challenge to the rule of law. While many have peacefully expressed their anger and grief, others have hijacked protests to engage in lawlessness, violent rioting and arson, looting of businesses and public property, assaults on law enforcement officers and innocent people, and even the murder of a federal agent. Such senseless acts of anarchy are not exercises of First Amendment rights. They are crimes designed to terrify fellow citizens and intimidate communities. As I told the governors on Monday, we understand the distinction between 3 different sets of actors. The large preponderance of those who are protesting are peaceful demonstrators who are exercising their First Amendment rights. At some demonstrations, there are groups that exploit the opportunity to engage in looting. And finally, at some demonstrations, there are extremist agitators who are hijacking the protests to pursue their own separate and violent agenda. We have evidence that Antifa and other similar extremist groups, as well as actors of a variety of different political persuasions, have been involved in instigating and participating in violent activity. We're also seeking foreign actors playing all sides to exacerbate the violence. By the way, my counterintelligence, my counterterrorism contacts tell me that there is influence from China, from Russia, from North Korea, and Iran in these, not the peaceful side, in the hijacking of the peaceful protests, leading to riots and to arson and destruction and death. He goes on. The Department of Justice is working to restore order in the District of Columbia and around the nation. Here in Washington, we are working around the clock with local police, the citizen soldiers of the National Guard, and other federal agencies to provide safety and justice. We have deployed all the major law enforcement components of the department in this mission, including the FBI, ATF, DEA, Bureau of Prisons, and U.S. Marshal Service. I thank them all for those working bravely and professionally to protect the district. The Justice Department is also working closely with our state and local partners to address violent riots around the country. Our federal law enforcement efforts are focused on the violent agitators. Through the FBI, U.S. Attorney's offices, component field offices, and state and local enforcement, we are receiving real-time intelligence and have developed resources to quell outbreaks of violence in several places. I urge governors, mayors, and other state and local leaders to work closely with the National Guard and with us. The federal government has thus far made 51 arrests for federal crimes in connection with violent rioting. We will continue to investigate, make arrests, and prosecute where warranted. When I was Attorney General in 1992, violent riots broke out in Los Angeles following acquittal of police officers accused of beating Rodney King. Ultimately, the department, at my discretion, filed federal civil rights charges against the officers. As President Bush assured the nation at that time, the violence will end, justice will be served, hope will return. The same is true today. The rule of law will prevail. Thank you. By the way, in the 92 King event in Los Angeles, the military was activated. Now you have Mattis out there and Powell out there and Kelly out there and Mullen out there saying, well, they shouldn't activate the military. Let me tell you something. Having lived through the 68 riots in Chicago, I was a young boy. I've talked about this last week. There are steps that mayors and governors must take to protect their cities and the citizens and the businesses and the people of their communities. In 92, active military was brought in to quell the riots. Mattis and Powell and Mullen and Kelly and Ron, all these, they're acting like this has never happened in our country's history. Give me a break. They happened in Detroit with the riots in 68, in D.C. in the riots in 68. You do what you have to do to protect the law-abiding public. But the data they want you to consume is that this has never happened. It's also been said through that box, through the bought-off lamestream fake media, that President Trump hasn't addressed the issue. He doesn't care. One of the people that leveled these charges was this General Mattis. Here's what he said, June 3rd. Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people, does not even pretend to try. Instead, he tries to divide us. Okay. All right, Mattis. Mad dog. Where you been living, under a rock? May 30th. 3 days before you shot your mouth off, President Trump at the launch of SpaceX said the following. Tell me if these are divisive words. Only a globalist would consider this divisive. Mattis. Before going further, this is President Trump. Before going further on this exciting day for all Americans in space, I want to say a few words about the situation in Minnesota. The death of George Floyd on the streets of Minneapolis was a grave tragedy. It should never have happened. It has filled Americans all over our country with horror, anger, and grief. Divisive? Yesterday, I spoke to George's family and expressed the sorrow of our entire nation for their loss. You didn't hear this on the box. No, they're too busy talking about Mattis, talking about Trump being divisive. President Trump went on. I stand before you as a friend and ally to every American seeking justice and peace. And I stand before you in firm opposition to anyone exploiting this tragedy to loot, rob, attack, and menace. Here's a divisive statement. You ready? Healing, not hatred. Justice, not chaos, are the mission at hand. What rock was Mattis under? He's under the deep state rock. He just happened to slither out to do this hit for them. The police officers, and this is President Trump, the police officers involved in this incident have been fired from their jobs. One officer has already been arrested and charged with murder. State and federal authorities are carrying out an investigation to seek what further charges may be warranted, including against, sadly, the other three. In addition, my administration has opened a civil rights investigation. I've asked the Attorney General and the Justice Department to expedite it. I understand the pain that people are feeling. We support the right of peaceful protesters and we hear their pleas. But what we are now seeing in the streets of our cities has nothing to do with justice or with peace. The memory of George Floyd is being dishonored by rioters, looters, and anarchists. The violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. The main victims of this horrible, horrible situation are the citizens who live in these same lovely communities and once lovely communities. The mobs are devastating the life work of good people and destroying their dreams. Right now, America needs creation, not destruction, cooperation, not contempt, security, not anarchy, and there will be no anarchy. Civilization must be cherished, defended, and protected. The voices of law-abiding citizens must be heard and heard very loudly. We cannot and must not allow a small group of criminals and vandals to wreck our cities and lay waste to our communities. We must defend the rights of every citizen to live without violence, prejudice, or fear. We support the overwhelming majority of police officers who are incredible in every way and devoted public servants. They keep our city safe, protect our communities from gangs and drugs, and risk their own lives for us every day. And the deep state puppet, Mattis, says that that wasn't words to unite. So who's to blame? There's a lot of blame to shove around. Look, first of all, anyone who has bought into that box and the bought-off lamestream fake media, who has bought into the fact that they're not being fed propaganda, that this is all legit, what's coming out of the box, that the facts the deep state is throwing at you is all accurate, they're part of the problem. And they help create this problem by being so consumed with the propaganda that they've missed the facts. Who else is responsible? Those who hijacked the peaceful protests and unleashed incredible destruction and death. Antifa and other subversive organizations. And the players who have funded them. It's been shown that Soros has funneled money through non-governmental organizations into such organizations as Antifa. Other countries, China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, according to my counterterrorism contacts. And those that are in leadership positions in our government who have looked the other way, in particular, the FBI. I believe Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, has been there several years. He needs to leave. He was too busy trying to cover up, along with many other people, not just him, many other people in the FBI, who were too busy trying to cover up their attempt at a coup to remove a duly elected president of the United States and their attempt in framing General Flynn. They were too busy consumed with that and then the cover-up with that and allowed Antifa and these radicalized terrorist organizations to flourish, to grow, to metastasize in the United States that have unleashed this havoc the last couple weeks in our country. The FBI has been negligent. I said it last week. I'm saying it again. Negligent. This country was founded and flourished under people standing on their own 2 feet, working hard, persevering, dedicating, and sacrificing to make the country better, to make their communities better, to make their families better. They did it standing on their own 2 feet. And now, people on that box are telling you to get on your knees. Get on your knees to other humans. What? Show me a society that's prospered. Show me a society that's not based on oppression, that's lived on its knees. No. Standing tall on our 2 feet. Addressing issues on data and facts that are accurate, not the Trojan horse of misinformation, disinformation, and falsehoods that the globalists are feeding you through the box. We all need to stand on our own 2 feet. We need to face the music. We need to face the facts, the true facts. And we need to move forward with our country. We need to rebuild the communities that were looted, that were firebombed, that were destroyed. We need to stand on our own 2 feet and address those in law enforcement that have abused their privilege of serving and protecting and have actually taken it to other levels, such as that situation and that cop and those cops in Minneapolis. We don't do that on our knees. We do that standing tall on our own 2 feet. George Washington, the first president of the United States, when he was speaking about the British and about freedom and about liberty, said, "I will die on my feet before I will live on my knees." This country was built on standing on your feet, and not kneeling to authority. Human authority. If our country is to survive this, to fix the problems, to grow, to maintain freedom and liberty and enhance those freedoms and liberties, the only way we're going to do it is taking on the deep state players, the globalist syndicate, the New World Order crowd, the old, whatever you want to call it, the oppressive forces, whether they are external or internal. The only way we're going to do that effectively is on our feet and not on our knees. I thank you for your time today. I hope you'll join us on the radio show every Sunday, 2 to 5 Eastern. I hope you'll become a subscriber of our platform. This show, this YouTube channel, the website, and the radio show would not exist without our subscribers. I believe it's the biggest bang for the buck in all the internet. 30 cents a day, $9 a month. I hope you become part of our Freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thank you for your time today.